Hail, listeners! You are attending the Transreal News, the mightiest source of news, travel advisories, and forecasts for travelers through the astral planes, outer noosphere, and time itself. I am Torg Skullcrusher, your host. And now, the news in brief. It appears that the United States military has been consulting heavily with Vogonists to enhance security at Area 51. They are planning for the possibility that the Indigo children might decide to actually have a Storm Area 51 event where the people who showed up were an actual credible threat. Given the current state of California, neo-anarchist groups have set up collectives that are providing electricity and water to communities isolated by prehistoric marshes, dangerous dinosaur herd territory, roving gangs of deranged cyberpunk villains, or destroyed roads. While these groups are using homemade and scrapped equipment, and may be prone to usurious demands, they are still providing power more reliably than PG&E. We have been contacted by several groups in California asking whether Walter might have missed localized irreality events, as California is, for once, not on fire. We checked. While this event seems completely improbable, it is in fact just plain lucky. A brawl between death cults in England last night led to multiple hospitalizations and arrests. The two cults apparently simultaneously planned to block up the same transit station at the same time to let people know about the reason they believe mankind's numbers must be reduced. While they came to blows swiftly, they called police at the first sight of blood, and were cowering in their respective picket lines when onlookers decided that they had had enough and beat them senseless for blocking the train. One man, who was arrested for the hilarious act of supergluing a hand to a cultist's face, said, quote, "I have no idea what these bloody wankers have to say, and I don't care. I have to get to work. Climate change can go f*** itself, and so can they." Australian hunters, after eating the meat of plant-based animals, have stated that it at best has an odd texture and only vaguely resembles the taste of real meat. They said that only the thrill of the hunt made it even remotely acceptable. Food scientists note that it is full of dangerous chemicals anyway, and recommend just sticking to the real thing. And now your time-space forecast, with the bad boy of computer science himself, Walter Haversquirrel.
Huh? What? Oh, I like that. Thank you, Torg. Listeners, Indigo children across Southern California have gravitated to the site of awesome alien jerky to listen to Visitor Zorg's stories. Local Queel readings have reached 2.7, but most of the irreality seems to be funneling into Zorg himself, as well as a local drive-through burger chain franchise, which has had the miraculous effect of making it actually as good as Californians pretend it is. The Ossiflora hive mind appears to have finally siphoned off the last irreality outside of Baker available on the planet, and is concentrating it in a giant bulb over Uluru. I had a write-in question from a listener about how high the Queel would have to be for things they are hearing in their poli-sci class to actually be true. Remember, Evan, that each point of Queel represents one step away from everyday reality, as it actually can be apprehended by a rational mind trained in Bayesian logic. Thus, depending on your professor, anywhere between 2.5 and 7 Queel seems about right.
Beware, listeners, for now we shill for one of our corporate sponsors.
Do you watch television, read magazines, consume legacy media news, read government white papers, use public transit, or even just walk along advertisement-choked city streets? I suspect the answer is yes. Then you're being subjected every day to manipulative memes designed to distort your view of reality to suit some other person's agenda. While it can help to assume that almost anything said by the government, television, or respected academics since 1930 is utter bullshit, it often isn't enough. Which is why we invented the Lunatic Calm Meme Shield. This device detects the micro-queel that people transmit every time they say something deliberately false or stupid. The comfortable headphones and smart glasses then filter out manipulative bullshit so you don't have to. Graphic memes are replaced by a collection of soothing natural images and passages from the Tripitaka. Auditory memes are dubbed over with a collection of soothing natural sounds. And subliminal messaging is always accompanied by an enduring flash of red light or a ringing sensation in your ears. The Lunatic Calm meme shield will prevent others from imposing their false consciousness on you. Warning, operators may find themselves rendered temporarily blind or deaf during operation. Do not use while walking in urban areas or shopping malls. Do not use while operating a motor vehicle. May become locked during university classes or if subjected to television news. May be habit-forming. Not recommended for parties, political rallies, or psychotherapy sessions. Consult your local Gen X slacker to see if Lunatic Calm is right for you. May improve pinball performance. May be prohibited in some regions.
And now here's Toby and Klie with their Journal from Beyond.
Klie Maxwell reporting from, well, Earth. Sort of. On Wednesday, Toby and I breached a heavily guarded and warded ruin in Grammaton, and found a portal that was marked with numerous warnings, and in a place no one had been in centuries from the look of it. It took me a long time to open the seal. Given the state of the area, we weren't interrupted. Where we ended up was... how do I even begin to describe it? A dead Earth. There were buildings, streets, cars, but everything was empty. There were no plants, no animals, nothing. It was like all life was just erased around 1985 from what we see in the stores. The sun was distant, cold, and brown. The temperature was freezing. Thankfully, we were able to break into some stores and get fur coats. The air is thin and foul, too. At first we thought it was totally abandoned. Eventually we saw something slithering through an old storm drain. It was boneless, tentacled, and one-eyed, and it seemed confused to see us. We got in an old propane car and made our way up to San Francisco, because it might be easier to tell if there was a major difference between our reality and this one, with all the landmarks. And we looked for news, but found that every book and magazine was erased. There was no written words left. Aside from the total lack of written word, the only thing we found different was the paint job on the Golden Gate Bridge. Sometimes, on things like billboards, you could tell what word had been written because it left a negative space on the painted signs. But mostly, everything was just blank. You can't seem to get to the astral plane from here. It appears to be completely cut off except by way of specific portals. No drugs, ritual, or projection seems to work. I'm beginning to think we may be stranded. Recording from another Earth. We decided to try a ritual site we knew of from the old days when magic was mostly just the pursuit of nerdy girls, bored rich guys, and teenage boys who like to see tits. It worked, but we ended up on yet another dead Earth. This one seemed to stop around 1975. It was easier to tell that this was a different Earth, what with a statue of Lenin in Ghirardelli Square. But again, aside from the occasional squirming things you catch out of the corner of your eye, dead. No real record of what happened. We are now on our 6th Earth. This one is the first where we have gotten some evidence of what happened. Here it seems like life stopped in the late 1990s. There are signs of some kind of battle here, and damage to the buildings that look like they had been wormed through by some sort of vines or something. But again, all life, including whatever damaged the buildings, has been erased. We ran out of rations a while back and have been subsisting on the kind of crap that can go for centuries without decaying in closed wrappers. I can just feel my cells weeping. We're going to see if we can go back to Grammaton the way we came in. We made it back to the slimescape of Grammaton. It looks like time itself didn't even pass outside the Qlippoth. We are headed to the nearest hive bar to get blasted. Then, if we feel brave enough, we're going to go back in and see if we can't find anything within a half dozen other Earths. I have the funny feeling that we already have an answer about what happened. You think that Archon's rant meant something? I'm starting to put pieces together, and I don't like the picture I'm making. I take it it's not the part about the ivory bicycle shoe fins. No, not that part. Anything you care to share before we make the dead drop? Not before a drink, Toby. This is Klie Maxwell signing off. Try to be safe out there, darlings.
You have been listening to Transreal News, an independent news source for astral projectors, ethereal jaunters, and eaters of the lotus. Hail, listeners, and may your course be lined with lesser foes.
The Transreal News was created, directed, written, and performed by Brian C. Rideout, and produced by Stormhead Productions, and is released under a Creative Commons by Attribution, Non-Commercial 4.0 license. This episode of Transreal News included music and sound effects from Pixabay. For show notes or contact information, visit trans-real.stormheadproductions.ca or visit me on Twitter at transrealpod. I love hearing from my audience. If you have comments, questions, or an idea for a news article, please by all means drop me a voicemail. Check out my homepage and look for the heading Tell Me What You Think in the sidebar. Then just hit record to tell me what's on your mind. Thank you so much for listening.